Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 16 of the Boot Report. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you the pair of GRAIL football boots that I just was able to buy. We are going to compare two of the top speed boots on the market and, of course, answer all of your questions. Let's jump into section one, the weekly news. We are going to start straight off with the latest colorway drops. Now, Puma have another pack, yet another, about the 1,000th for just 2025. This is called the Puma Brilliance Pack 3.0. I'm not sure whether there was a I can't remember if there was a 2.0. There probably was, but 2.0 and 1.0. The Puma Brilliance Pack basically is a white base, and then it's got some really nice blue and pink accents to the bottom. Basically, it almost looks like this in terms of this Messi, in terms of the white base and the color being right on the bottom there of that football boot. So that's something that is kind of an acquired taste, I think. I think they look absolutely sensational. However, I think as a lot of people are the same as me, it doesn't really matter because they've come out with so many different boots this year. It's kind of boring. However, I do think they're really sick. So particularly the Ultra. But to be fair, I think the Ultra and the Ultra Carbon are just really nice looking speed boots because they're so focused and so aggressive. It makes for a situation where you've got really whatever color you put on there is going to be pretty okay, except for some of these really crappy green and electric yellow colorways. I don't know what they're thinking, but we'll get into some colorway stuff a little bit later with Mizuno. We also had the Under Armour Magnetico 5, which is the new model. The Magnetico 4 is currently on sale right now, and by on sale, that's a double entendre. Not only is it on the market for sale, it's for sale and it's on sale. So it's on sale twice and probably usually 3 times. You can usually find Magnetico 4 for about $16.95 at your local Ross for those of you who live in America. And here in Australia, I don't think I've seen a single person wear Under Armour. Number one, they're not very available down in this part of the world. But number two, the Shadow is a far better football boot just in general. And so we haven't seen a ton of those floating around. The Magnetico 4 is a pretty poor football boot. It's pretty bad. And the oxidic material is really cool on the upper. You guys can check out my full review if you're interested in all of the actual tech details. But the boot itself just isn't very good. It's not very well designed. And in my opinion, it doesn't fit all that well. They're just doing too much with it. However, this new Magnetico 5, they did a collaboration with obviously Rudiger and Mansory. Or Mansory, or however you pronounce it. Mansory is a custom car builder. So they basically take a bunch of performance models. So they do like the Lamborghini Urus, they'll do Rolls-Royce Cullinan. A lot of their stuff has to do with sort of big luxury SUVs, Bentley Bentegas, things like that. And they basically take it and do a full body kit. They'll completely reupholster the inside. Some of the Mansory stuff is very aggressive. It's super, super... Yeah, it's aggressive is kind of the best way to explain it. I'll put some photos up on screen of what a few of those Mansory products actually look like. It might be for you. They're not really my cup of tea. They've been done in a very tasteful way sometimes. Needless to say, it's cool to see this sort of collab happening. Obviously, with Puma, we saw some of the F1, like the F1 Japan colorway that came out that was very similar to these bad boys, and so which we'll get into in a minute as well. But that was they did that collab. They're orange and red, which is Mansory's colors. Obviously Mansory does things that aren't black and orange as well. The new boots look pretty good from the photos that we got and from Rudiger actually wearing them. They look like a one-piece upper with a synthetic, I wouldn't say synthetic leather necessarily, but kind of just a basic synthetic. It looks like a one-piece upper. It looks like they've ditched the oxidic material unless they've gone a little bit backwards. Sole plate looks about the same as well, but heel area looks a lot better. That was one of the main issues I had with the Magnetico 4 was that there were sort of a bunch of different layers. It almost felt like the boot had 3 distinct layers as opposed to, any other pair. And I'm not necessarily comparing them to the Vapors because the Vapors are a speed boot, but even a quote unquote power boot like that, You compare that to a Predator, which is just a hybrid touch upper, and then maybe it has a little bit of a liner on it, and that's about it. This one literally felt like it had 16 layers to it. So they're just not very comfortable, but I do have hope for the next generation, considering how wild the jump from Shadow 2 to Shadow 3 was. Shadow 2 was a pretty good football boot by all stretch of the imagination. Shadow 3 is fantastic. So very interesting. And then these haven't released quite yet, but I'm going to put them in this week's latest colorway drops because we've seen them now on feet a couple times in game and in training session, and that is the Stone Island Furon V8. They usually come out with a Stone Island edition in pretty much every version of the Furon. I really was hoping that they would do the new Tequila in the Stone Island. We may get it, we may not, but it's been done for the last couple generations of Furon, so that's pretty cool. It was on Saka's feet. And then we also got the Nike T90 indoor court shoes that came into Ultra. So these aren't brand new necessarily. I've covered the indoor court ones, but I was there earlier today, which I also want to speak about the new Nike pack as well, because I actually had those in hand today. And they have the light blue and white and the red and white version. So I'm really considering getting the light blue ones just because I absolutely love that. It's almost like, let's see, this is a little like shaker bottle, but it's almost like that color, like a little bit lighter than that one. It's more of like a baby blue color as opposed to a royal blue or like a cyan color. So some cool latest colorway drops. I am interested to see the Magnetico 5. I won't be purchasing the Mansory edition. Number one, they're all sold out because there were 98 pairs or 96 pairs or whatever it was. But I am excited to review those when they do decide to come to market, which I would assume is probably pretty soon. I don't know if there are any major Magnetico Pro players other than Rudiger, so I'm not sure. And I'm not sure on the female side either. So that would make the most sense if they launched. Obviously, Real Madrid is still, I think they're still in the Club World Cup. Yeah. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I am interested to see kind of what players rock up in them, if they're really that much better, etc. So some interesting thing. New in the shop. So I really wanted to touch on Tequila V5s really quick. I don't have them in store. I can't show you, or in store, in the shop. I can't show you those right now because I don't have them, but they are coming in. Just know that those will be coming in very soon. I'm very excited to review them. I don't really have any sort of presuppositions that I'm going into this review with, other than I know that they're a very similar material to the 442, and that upper on the 442 is really, really nice. It's a very soft synthetic leather upper, and I'm excited to review those. The next one is, of course, a GRAIL pair of football boots. Now, this is the Mizuno Morelia Ultralights, which come in this absolutely sensational gold box. Now, I'm not really gonna unbox these for you because I want you to wait till the review, but I love the fact that these get a gold box. There you go, the made in Japan. So cool. And these are in my normal size 9 US, the UK 8, etc. This is a boot that I have been looking for a very long time, and I am super pumped to get these into the shop. So not going to open them up. You'll have to wait for the actual review. But I'm assuming I've never actually had these on feet. So who knows? These may be absolutely trash, but I don't care because I think they're a super cool concept. And I love the idea that they took an iconic leather football boot that was already almost as light as speed boots and then made it even lighter, which is pretty crazy. Okay. Section 2. Boot talk. Now, this is going to be a very juicy one. We had a super tight comparison for the weekly boot comparison, like really tight. I'll show you guys. First of all, how cool is this? Phone backgrounds available on my website. So let's go through the different ones that I had this week. So I'll get into my Instagram archive really quick and share with you the choices that you guys had. I'm going to try to get these done on Wednesday or Thursday. I'll kind of put the top 4 comparisons that I have in mind, and then you guys get to pick. So the top comparisons were the Neo 4 Beta versus non-beta, the Vapor versus Messi, which of course we're doing, Copa Pure 3 versus Tiempo 9, because I think those are actually quite similar football boots, and then the Morelia 2 versus the updated Morelia 2. Which is a really cool one. Here's the other thing that I just realized. The updated Morelia 2 can actually because it's a new model, yes, it's still called the Morelia 2, but it's an update. It counts as boot of the year in the boot of the year competition. So definitely be prepared to see that one pretty high on the list. However, look at how close that was. So close. So we had the Neo 4 the beta versus non-beta was 26%. Vapor of Messi was 28% of you. Copa Pure 3 Tiempo was 24%, and Morelia 2 versus Morelia 2 update. And there were how many votes? We had interactions. How many votes? Navigation, 2,600 votes. Is that how many we had? Why can't I see how many votes there were? That's annoying. Well, oh, here we go. 76 votes, 82. I can't do the math. It was a couple hundred of you. Anyway, thank you for voting. So without further ado, let's jump into some of this amazing comparison. So in the comparison, we're going to go, of course, over the sole plate. We're going to go over the upper material. We're going to go over the heel, the comfort, the performance, the design, and the lace area. So without further ado, let's jump into this. So this is a pair of regular, the Vapor 16 Elite. This is the original blueprint edition, which is super, super cool. I absolutely love this color. It's one of the best, even though it came out a really long time ago. I think this is one of the best colors they've had so far. And then the only reason I'm not doing the brand new Messi, so the updated model, is because it's still sitting right here because I haven't had time to work with it, whereas I have extensive experience with this model, not this exact boot. I've played in this several times, but the gold edition in particular, I have a lot of experience in. So I can tell you quite a bit about this one as well as the Vapor. So we're going to go with those for now, and then we can always bring them in, the new ones in. Okay, sole plate has to go for me to the Messi model. Now, some of you guys are going to be probably screaming in the comment section like, Noah, why the Messi model? You've got air zoom in here. You've got such an aggressive sole plate. I won't deny that from a traction standpoint, the Vapor definitely does have the more aggressive stud pattern, but I would very much argue that the balance and the way that it feels underfoot, the Sprint Frame 360 feels a lot better in my opinion. No, it's not super aggressive. It's not as aggressive as the Vapor traction, but I do think this has a little bit more snap. It feels a little bit more robust underfoot. And just in general, I've said this since the very beginning, I just haven't, even though these boots fit me and I do really like them, the traction with the air zoom unit just doesn't really do it for me all that much. I don't know. Some people absolutely love it and people swear by it and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I had several teammates at Flower City a couple of years ago that absolutely swore by Vapor 15 and were like, this is the only boot I ever want to wear. And they still ask me to source boots for them because it's like, their 15s are sometimes kind of hard to buy because they were objectively a good pair of football boots. It's just, I don't know, man, air zoom just never did it for me. So Messi wins this one. The upper is also a really good question, I think. And this is also, I think we are in a era of football boots that is really amazing. I hope you guys know that. I've been around for a really long time. I've been in the boot game for, 5+ years now, but well over that in terms of my enthusiasm and actually trying and testing football boots. I've only been on social media for about 5.5 years, little over 5.5 years. And we are in a really cool era of football boots. There's a lot going on, a lot changing, lots of innovation, but both of these uppers are really, really nice. I love the hybrid touch material. Obviously, its application on the Predator is probably more my vibe than the Messi, although the Messi is, despite that my kind of issues with the shape of the boot, which we'll get into in a second, this upper is very, very nice. It's very fun to play and it feels super natural and it's really awesome. That being said, grip knit is one of the most incredible materials on the market. The durability of grip knit, the fact that it's got this waxy sensation to it, but it's also so thin, is such an incredible technology, in my opinion, regardless of brand. I think the fact that grip knit exists is just fantastic. It's such a cool material. And I'm actually going to give the upper, I want to give it a tie, but I think I'm going to give it to the grip knit because I just think the grip knit is a little bit more special. It's a little bit more pliable. It's more soft. It's going to have a little bit better lockdown as well because it doesn't stretch all that much. And I just think the Vapor 16 upper is pretty good. All right, in terms of heel area, now I'll turn these around so you can kind of get a sense. Both of these are now broken in. I can wear these without any sort of issues either way. Obviously, I've worn the Vapors quite a bit more, but regardless, you can see there's kind of a little bit more of a neutral shape to the Vapor, whereas the F50 Messi has a little bit of a narrower heel area, which ironically, I actually kind of prefer a narrower heel area, but the fact that this padding here is actually kind of slippery, I really don't like that this heel area is the way it is. It's one of my major gripes with the boot other than the shape of it. So I'm actually going to give the heel area to the Vapor. I think it's going to fit more people. It's really nicely padded. It's got the suede heel liner, as does the F50 Messi, but the Messi boot, for whatever reason, it just feels so slick. Like it's just got this really slippery feeling to it. Whereas this is kind of that suede material that as your feet get a little bit sweaty and they get a little bit wet, it tends to stick a little bit more. So it's got a lot more friction and stuff. So that's why I like the heel area on the Vapor a little bit more. Moving on to comfort, I think this is going to be a no-brainer, I think, for most people. I think most people are going to fit in the Vapor a lot better. I would argue that if you have narrow feet, the Messi are going to feel really nice for you. And this is a pair of football boots that I think is really well designed from a comfort perspective, right? Like the upper is really nice, but they've absolutely shafted themselves on the shape because it's way too pointy here in the toe box area. It's very low profile, which isn't that big of a deal for me, but I know a lot of people have issues with it. And then this midfoot is really narrow as well. It's kind of like, it's got a narrow heel, narrow midfoot, but then it goes pretty wide and then really pointy at the toe. And I just think this shape sucks. And so I'm going to give the comfort to the Vapor because I think the combination of the grip, the grip knit and the fly knit material, the Atom knit here on the side, like that is really hard to beat. It's super soft. It's going to wrap your foot regardless of what the foot shape is, so long as you don't have insanely wide feet. And really, that's why this boot crushes, in my opinion, in terms of comfort. It is one of the more comfortable speed boots on the market, even though the Air Zoom sucks. Performance-wise, I think this is a tie. I think both of them, I'm going to get over my gripes about the heel area with the Messi. Just in terms of pure performance, you could argue maybe that the grip knit just helps a little bit more. It's a little bit lighter of a boot as well, and it's going to give you that super barefoot feel and touch on ball. But I do think for a lot of people, myself included, the hybrid touch upper is just fantastic to play in. Not necessarily better than the grip knit, as we've established before, but I do think it's such a cool playing experience, especially because they've now created something that is well and truly closer to what Messi actually wears on his feet, which is a really cool experience as well. You can kind of get a taste for what it's like being the GOAT. Not really, but like, you know, at least we can have some semblance of similar footwear to him, which is kind of cool. Okay, next we move on to the design. Now, this one, I don't know, man. This kind of splits hairs for me. I think the design, as I mentioned in last week's podcast when I showed you guys the new F50 Messi, the new F50 Messi design is really clean in my opinion. I really like the way it looks. This one, in my opinion, is okay. It's pretty basic. The new F50 just doesn't really do it for me all that much. Whereas I do think, despite this big Air unit or this big Air logoing on the heel, I think the design of the Vapor is just so clean. It's so beautiful. And there's so much you can do with this design, which we obviously have seen in colorways this last year or so since this Vapor has been out. So this is one of those comparisons that I think is going to be a little bit of personal preference. I'm going to go with the Vapor on this one. Then in terms of lace area, for me, I know a lot of people love this weird burrito style tongue thing. I have to go with the fly knit here. The Vapor definitely does a better lacing system area just because they're both about the same in terms of how deep the lacing system is, how wide the lacing system is. Yes, you could absolutely argue that this is a lot more like a standard U-throat tongue, but I just don't think it's the right application. I think this fits the vibe of the boot a lot better compared to the F50 Messi. And obviously the burrito style tongue is sort of Messi's personal touch, if you will. That's like a thing that he personally really enjoys. I think it's a little bit wonky. I think it's a little bit wacky. I don't really like it that much. I would rather have either the compression fit tunnel system from the regular release F50, or just go with a standard U-throat tongue and call it a day. I just don't know why they had to go with the knit fold over tongue. Anyway, so lacing system area definitely goes to the Vapor for me. And then in terms of X Factor, I think you have to give this one to the Messi. And the reason you have to give it to the Messi is because this is, like I mentioned before, this is a boot that is really, really close to what he actually wears, which is really cool. It's possible that Messi will tell everybody that he wears hybrid touch, and Adidas will tell everybody that he wears a hybrid touch boot, and maybe he's still wearing a K-leather football boot. Who knows? However, this seems to be, with the burrito style tongue and the hybrid touch upper, it's a lot closer at least to what we got compared to the regular F50, which number one is kind of a shitty football boot, but number two, it's enough different, as in totally different upper, totally different feel. It completely, even though the sole plates are the same and the heel area is about the same, it really changes the feel of the boot and the sensation of playing in the boot, which I absolutely love. If you're going to make two different variations, this is sort of my gripe with Nike, and particularly the Superfly Vapor, because they're identical now, whereas they've split the Phantom 6 and Phantom 6 High at least a little bit, with the fact that there's the Ghost lacing system on the Phantom 6 High, and they're going to feel actually a little bit different, even though they're still all the same materials. Whereas I really applaud Adidas for doing versions like this and versions like the David Beckham Predators, which are right here. So those, taking a standard model and then doing kind of an upgraded or more of a pro style model to it, I think is really, really cool. So where does that leave us? Messi with 2 points and a tie, so that's 3, and then Vapor with 6 points, including the tie. So a pretty clear winner here, at least for me. Neither boot are my favorite on the market. I think that the F50 Messi didn't even make it into my top 10 last year, and the Vapor made it, I think it was number 6 or number 5, so definitely up there. I prefer the Vapor. I think the Vapor is an objectively better product, even though one of the core issues I have with it is the sole plate. It's a little too narrow for me, and I'm talking like once my foot has swelled because it's really hot outside and all these factors, then it starts to not fit me. Outside of that, this is a boot that fits me pretty much all the time, which is great. Whereas this one, the shape is just completely cooked in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm very glad that they at least seem to fix it on the new F50 Messi. Next, we move on to hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday. Now, I was so excited this week because out of I think we had 9 or 10 submissions this week, which is great. And we had 5 out of, it was under 10. We had like under 10 submissions this week, which is awesome. So thank you all for submitting. 5 pairs of the ruby red Mizuno pack, which is this bad boy here. Now, what's funny to me is that a boot like this, you look at it and you go, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's a solid color. You know me, guys. You know that I am obsessed with this style of colorway, and it just works. There's a reason that everyone went out and grabbed a ruby colorway. And guess what? If Mizuno decided to come out with and basically copy this colorway, guess what would happen? They'd also sell out a bunch. The reason for that is because unlike Adidas and Nike and Puma, who are trying to be super dumbass creative with all that, which it's not even creative at this point. It's like they're spinning a wheel, like a random wheel with all of the like Roy G. Biv colors. And then once they've decided on like the Roy G. Biv, like 3 Roy G. Biv colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, indigo, violet, right? Is that what it is? Anyway, the basic ones plus black and white. So it's like they did that. And then once they have the 3 colors, then they had a wheel of the hue of every single purple color, or every single orange color. And then they went, okay, let's just randomly do all those random color wheels as well. And then whatever it lands on, we're just going to figure out how to make it work. And it's like, no, that sucks. That no. 3 primary colors in a very elegant execution. And oh, by the way, guess what, Nike? Guess what, Adidas? Guess what, Puma? All y'all are trying to be bright and fancy and obnoxious and whatever. This accomplishes the same thing because you can see these from 16 miles away, and yet you look at them and they're so elegant and beautiful. It's not just because they're a Mizuno boot. I don't give a shit that it's a Mizuno boot. Asics did the same thing. And oh, by the way, Nike, you're capable of it as well. So is Adidas. And yet you throw all of these damn colors at the wall and you're like, I bet this would be good. Man, crazy. Anyway, 5 pairs of Mizuno Ruby Pack. All I wanted to say here was that I was very excited to see so many because it's obviously a very, very, very popular pack. They have basically sold out at Ultra already, which is amazing because there's still like Frontier Pack available, some Frontier Pack boots available at Ultra, as well as a couple other things. And yeah, they're selling out everywhere, particularly Morelia too. Holy crap. The new update is like, bam, it was gone so quickly. However, this is long-winded to be like, the Wear Your Boots Wednesday winner is my good friend Justin, Texas Cleat Collector, with a pair of really cool T90 Laser 4s, and they are the T90 Laser 4 KL, which stands for K leather. So it was a black and yellow and silver K leather T90 Laser, one of the best T90s, one of the best Nike power boots of all time, in my opinion. Fantastic pair of football boots. And Justin, props for keeping those really, really clean because they look almost brand new, which is sick. Okay, performance breakdowns. So I wanted to jump into performance breakdowns because we are going to bring back, at least for the time being, we're going to bring back a couple. We're going to dabble or sprinkle in some 1-month reviews every once in a while. And I wanted to let you guys know and kind of share my thoughts on why I think 1-month reviews are important and what you guys should look for in your football boots. And look, I'm not going to tell you necessarily that you're wrong if you don't look for these things, but football boots at the end of the day are a tool that we use to play a game. And so they have to be, which ergo means functionality first. And so for me, what goes into that functionality? Well, always number one, and I will preach this until the day that I die or stop posting on Instagram or YouTube or any of the other social platforms that exist in the future. Fit has to come first. Most of you who I don't know most of you personally. I don't know your foot shape. I don't know your foot size. And when you come to me and you are so gracefully in my comment section or in my DMs and you come to the table and you say, hey, what should I buy, the Vapor or the F50? My first response is, honestly, dude, I don't really care, but they have to fit your foot. And really, that's what we're going for here. Fit has to come first. Don't look at me for an example of that because I am somebody. However, look at my game and matches for what actually fits my foot. Don't look at all the play testing and the 1-month reviews. I do that for you guys. I do that so that I can share with you as much information about the performance of a football boot, even if it doesn't fit me that well and it hurts and I want to take them off, because I want to make sure that you're getting the best possible information on the market and in the boot world before you make a purchasing decision. Because the big brands in general really don't do a great job at sharing the philosophy behind what foot shape is, what the last actually looks like, what are the measurements of the lasting, et cetera, because it's all like in-house and hush, et cetera. So fit always first. My 2 cents would be, once you found the let's say out of the 50 odd some models or even more now, if you go to more niche markets like Indonesia or India or China, you're going to find a buttload of boots. But let's say like relatively worldwide available, there's probably about 50 different models, roughly 50 different models maybe, that are at the top end. The next thing you do, let's say out of 50, I fit really well, or I fit pretty well in, let's say 10, right? Then you go, okay, what's available? And you narrow it down to 5. The next thing is stud pattern for me. This is where stud pattern is super, super important. So this is where you decide, I play X amount of percentage on AG, I play X amount of percentage on FG or SG. And then I have to figure out, what do I actually do? I make recommendations in my football boot size guide, which you guys can download on my website for free. The link is in the description, but it's like a 70-page document with every single detail you need to know about the fit of every top-end current model. at least that I've tried. So stud pattern comes second. If you decide on a boot like the Morelia Neo 4, and this is the one that I just have with me right now, this is a stud pattern that's going to be really, really good for pretty much every surface, including SG. Yes, you might slip around a little bit, but it's going to be okay. Whereas if you pick something like a Vapor, this stud pattern is incredibly aggressive, not going to be great for AG surfaces. You risk injury, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to decide, okay, if they both fit me and I play kind of 50-50, this is the better option because this is going to actually provide me the best underfoot feel. So then we go into number 3, which is performance aspects. So these are all the little things that you like. So that's maybe from those 5 boots that you've narrowed down that you can get readily available and that you know they all fit your foot. You've decided on a stud pattern. And let's say all 5 of them have like a nice AG option or a nice FG option. And you're like, cool, I got 5 options. Now what do I decide? Then for me, and again, I'm putting this on you as these are the things that I evaluate during a 1-month review and my testing process. And for clients who I do consulting for, those performance then comes third. So performance are things like materials that I really like. How's the lockdown? How's the heel area? If the fit is good, it kind of means that the shape is good for your foot and the heel is good. So maybe heel isn't really part of it. But now you move into what are the upper materials? How do the upper materials interact with the ball? What's the touch like? How tight can I get my laces without totally crushing my feet? Is the lockdown really good? Does it have an extra lace loop? Like all these different questions. So that's your third point of reference, not your first one. It's not what boot has the best lockdown. Okay, I'm going to go buy those. No. Fit, stud pattern, then performance. Really, really important. On that note, when people are doing fits, and I've been in the store kind of observing and hanging out with some of the guys and gals at Ultra who are in the boot room doing fittings for people. And it's remarkable to me how many people get the wrong size. Most of you are probably wearing the wrong size, which is why some of you come to me and you're like, I wear a 16.5 in Adidas and I wear an 11 in Nike and I wear this and that. It's like, oh my goodness. There's a reason why if you actually have the proper size, you shouldn't deviate all that much. That's why if you look at my size guide, I've got 9 US is pretty much my standard. And then some boots are a 9.5, some boots are an 8.5. The only exception to this rule is Adler, and Adler has super wonky sizing. I don't know why, but I go half to a full size down with Adler. Outside of that, my standard deviation is only half a size. Some of y'all are coming to me and literally saying 2 or 3 sizes difference between your boots from different brands, which is absolutely ridiculous. None of those boots probably fit you. A little tightness when you try your boots on doesn't mean they don't fit. It means that your foot shapes are slightly different than the last company, or excuse me, than the last that company is using, and you may need a little bit of break-in time. Finding the brand, that's where I think people with brand loyalty really screw up, because you can screw your foot up big time by being brand loyal. When you look at a Tiempo 9 and a Tiempo 10, if somebody's like, I only wear Nike Tiempos, and you have really wide feet, good fucking luck getting into the Tiempo 10, because they are way more narrow than the Vapor, and they're way more narrow than the Phantom 6 now. Horrible, right? Or if we don't even judge, we just say, objectively speaking, brands change the way that their boots fit, even within the same silo. You have to be brand agnostic. You have to go over fit first, stud pattern second, and then performance third. Boots, in my opinion, should be slightly tight right at the beginning, so that they break in and then they'll feel perfect. And then you can judge when you first try them on whether the actual shape is pretty good for you and in general, right? So then when it comes to the 1 month reviews, after I've established all of those things, it has to do with What does the lockdown feel like during sharp movements? Do I slip inside the boots? Does the heel hold my foot in? Is there excess space like anywhere here in the ankle area? Is there excess space at the front? Anywhere along the sides of the boot? For most boots on the market, the answer to a lot of those is no. However, synthetics for me tend to be a little bit wonky around the ankle area. Some heel areas aren't as good, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that I'm constantly thinking about during the course of a 1 month review. So doing all sorts of different drills, which is what you see in the B-roll of 1 month reviews, as well as the playtest videos and the review and playtest video all in one. Those are the types of drills that I like to do because they incorporate, I'll do some footwork in a ladder to get some agility stuff going on and feel how light and agile I feel in a boot. And then I go over to some dribbling drills. So that's like tight touches on the ball. How does a sole plate respond to short, sharp movements and changes of direction? Then you go into some ball striking, which is obviously a pretty important thing in football. And you sort of build from there, leading to sort of the end goal, which is maybe a pass into a dribbling drill that then ends in a shot or a cross or something like that. And that's really game realistic movements that then you're kind of figuring out like, okay, in the most extreme scenario, in the moments of the game where I'm touching the ball the most, are these boots going to perform the way they're supposed to perform? So that's what I'm looking for. All right, pro versus retail models. So we've seen some pretty cool models being seen on the feet of people like Hakimi with the Shadow 3 glitch, which he's been wearing for a couple training sessions in the game now. The Magnetico 5 Mansory boots from Rudiger, obviously, and then Due warming up in and playing in two different models. He was doing, I think he warmed up in the Ultra and played in the Vapor or the F50 or some combination of that, or maybe it was a Vapor and an F50, I can't remember. But it's really cool to see that brands are showing us boots on the feet of pros in their quote unquote like retail form. So we aren't seeing, it doesn't feel like outside of Messi, there are boots that for the naked eye, we're going to think are sort of the basic retail models, I guess. But I love tournament season because that's when brands are going to push, and that's when brands are going to have the least amount of kind of visual differences between the pro model and the retail model, because they're trying to sink that in consumers' minds of, okay, Rudiger's wearing the Mansory boots and I can go buy the Mansory boots. Obviously that's a bad example because there's only 96 pairs or 98 pairs in the world. But for when Adidas comes out with their new tournament pack and the Nike tournament pack, the Fear Nothing pack that just came out, you can go in store, online, look at photos, and then you look at Holland and you look at whoever else is wearing those Nike boots and you say, whoa, those are the same ones. Obviously there's going to be individual changes that have been made and customizations. But for the most part, that's when I feel like we see the least amount of visual customizations, because brands are doing a good job at sort of tying the knot between consumer model and pro retail model, which is really interesting as well. So behind the scenes industry talk, the next section, I want to talk about ASICS and Mizuno, because ASICS and Mizuno, which I have two of their leather football boots here, have just announced, ASICS first and then Mizuno did, that they are phasing out K-leather, believe it or not. This was official. This was like a whole press release, particularly from ASICS, and then Mizuno kind of followed suit as well. ASICS apparently by the end of 2025 in their football boots will have no more K-leather. I am not sure. I wasn't clear whether that was a global thing, whether that was just in their Japan model ranges, whether that was other model ranges around the world. There aren't very many ASICS models outside of Asia and Oceania. So I'm not sure where that has, whether America's going to be, or like the Western market's going to be influenced by that. I'm not sure, because they don't really sell football boots to other markets outside of Oceania and Asia. I don't know how much this is going to affect people who have never worn ASICS leather boots, but Mizuno in particular is going to be pretty heavily affected by this when it happens. So the current models that the ASICS brand has are the all hail the king, the DS Lite X Fly 5, which is an absolutely incredible football boot. But the forefoot here is the only thing that's leather. So everything else on this is in synthetic, obviously suede in the heel, and then you can't make a sole plate out of leather, but just the forefoot. So it's a pretty small amount, to be fair. And if the X Fly Pro 3 is a hint at what we're getting, that silky wrap material is ridiculous. It is so, it's different. You can tell from a feel, like in your hand perspective, that it's different. But my, oh my, is that a wonderful material that is very leather-like. It feels super, super close. So if they continue to use that on the X Fly 5, on whatever their next thing is, the X Fly Pro 4, or whatever new boots they come out with soon, which there are some exciting. So that'll be an interesting thing. Lethal Testimonial, which is only sold here in Australia, and then Ultreza 3, which is also only sold here in Australia. I don't know if they're... Oh, and then we have the C3, which is the K-Leather Morelia 2 competitor that's only sold in Japan. And then there may be one or two other boots that are only sold in Japan, but I have never heard of them and I don't know about them. So that's very, very possible. Mizuno also didn't really confirm on a timeline, but they said it was happening and they're phasing it out. The interesting thing is this didn't actually hit me until I was doing research for this particular podcast, this amazing episode that we are halfway through, that episode 16 was the moment I realized, which you may be like, duh, but it's interesting that they used Wagyu leather on the innovation pack. Funny how they said innovation, right? Forward movement and innovating and being better than we were before, but they're using cow leather. Wagyu leather's freaking amazing. One of my favorite boots of the year, Monorcita Neo 3 made in Japan with this Wagyu leather. It is fabulous. It's really good. And it feels incredibly robust as well. So hopefully it lasts a long time. Interesting, though, that we got a fully stock, no changes made whatsoever, Morelia 2, but the leather wasn't K-leather, it was Wagyu leather. So I'm interested to see if that's sort of Mizuno testing the market to kind of see, okay, how do people respond to the Wagyu leather as opposed to the K-leather? They used K-leather on the Proto and on the Neo 4 Beta with the Alpha sole plate. So they sort of did a half and half situation there. Needless to say, though, it's an interesting conversation to be had. I think for me, and I got this question, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, about my thoughts on leather. Go watch episode 15. I think it's in there, or maybe episode 14. You'll see the chapter markers, so you can find it in the description as well. You'll see my thoughts on leather. I think it's really dumb that they're going away from K-leather, but that's just my own personal opinion. I think when technology gets good enough, like ASICS has found, whatever factory they're using to produce the, I want to say Moist Tech, because you can see it here. The Moist Tech is actually this like midfoot material, the synthetic leather, and the Moist Tech is like their kind of it's like their ACC technology that Nike has. It's like their coating, the weather coating on the midfoot. If they have silky wrap and they're able to use silky wrap on a couple different models as sort of a stand-in for leather as they phase it out, by the end of 2025, that's pretty bold. Like you take X-Fly, you'd have to take C3, X-Fly 5, Ultreza, and Lethal Testimonial completely off the market. You have Swift Strike, you have Acros 3, you have X-Fly Pro 3 that are synthetic. That's a lot of, that's more than half your boots though. So I don't know. And then Mizuno is probably the most sad I've felt in a while. Just because Mizuno, I feel like Mizuno has been the gold standard for so long. And that has been such a core, K-leather has been such a core part of their ethos and their philosophy going away from that just feels, it feels like they're not going to be Mizuno anymore. It's going to be, Mizuno won't be Mizuno anymore. It'll be something else. And that's really sad, I think. Section 3, market report. We have some awesome notable boots resurfacing. So Rare Boots AU had a pair of Adidas Speedflow 0.1 in, I don't remember what this colorway was called, but it's like the Chinese New Year vibe. But it was also the Japan F1 colorway, kind of from that Ultra. Gold, red, and black. Super dope colorway. That's why I kept these for so long. And I think they look really, really beautiful. So the 0.1 version, the one with the laced model and the slightly different upper, that was Rare Boots AU, had those. And then Cleats Corner _1, who's the dealer who I was able to purchase the Morelia Ultralights from, also has a pair of Mizuno Rebula cups in red. It's the same pair that I actually reviewed on my channel. It was one of the first proper boot reviews that I ever did. And I love that pair of boots. They're all red Rebula cup, not Morelia's. The all red Morelia. I just said it again. Mizuno Rebula cup in red. Beautiful pair of football boots. I would love to get another pair of Rebulas just to have. I think they're awesome. They're so fun to play in, et cetera, et cetera. And then Tokyo Football actually still has the Morelia Neo made in Japan's, which I would highly, highly recommend. Number one, if you haven't seen my review and you don't know how good these are, go and check out my review of these, because these are special. These are so good for what they cost. The fit is incredible. The build is amazing. It's so robust and it just feels fantastic on feet. So Tokyo Football has these. They're not sponsoring this video or anything, but I saw that they put these up and you can shop those. So that's pretty cool. So some more innovation pack. Stock availability and drops. Phantom 6s seem to be selling out everywhere. Ultra sold out in less than a day of the launch colorway. And then the Fear Nothing pack, I was just in Ultra today, and I just wanted to make a couple comments really quick here in the stock availability. It seems like the Fear Nothing pack is holding pretty well in terms of stock at Ultra, and I think at some other places as well. Although I would imagine that if you are somebody who's like, oh, I really like the Fear Nothing pack Phantoms, I would buy them as soon as you possibly can, because I think those are going to be in pretty high demand. Although we have already seen them on the resale market, which is bananas to me, because I actually made that. So I made a note on my show notes here. I saw the Fear Nothing Phantoms on resellers' web pages before they actually launched to the public, which is wild, but it also makes sense if they've got like a Nike hookup and stuff like that. So insane. But in terms of how they feel and how they look, I just want to make a quick comment. So Tiempo feels the exact same. The coating on the upper feels identical to the last several colorways, especially those that are matte. It's got that kind of matte green finish to it. Feels exactly the same. From a look perspective, they're fine. It's emerald green. You know, they're okay. I just don't like the Tiempo 10, so I just don't think they look all that great. They're a little too low profile. They're not what a Tiempo, in my opinion, should be. So those are my comments on the Tiempo. The Vapor looks fabulous in person. Fabulous in person. It's really nice. I love the solid white base with that kind of ombre red to pink color right on the bottom of the boot. Actually quite similar to the new Puma pack that we got, but the Puma decided to go with fucking multicolored, which is super dumb. But Vapors look great, and they feel also identical to every other colorway. Notably, they aren't like the MDS colorways, so the Dream Speed or the, what is the new Cosmic Speed colorways, where they've got sort of that coating on the top that makes the grip knit essentially useless. They are very grippy. They're way more like this kind of color where you've got grip everywhere. So that's really great to see. And then the Phantoms look really nice. The Phantoms are probably my favorite out of the group. I also love the color blue. So Phantoms look great, and they feel pretty much the same as the normal edition. I don't think I'll get the blue ones in, although I may sell the launch colorway ones and get the blue ones. We'll just see. I don't know. But I'm going to do my reviews and play tests are going to be of the launch colorways, because that's what I have. And I don't really want to go out and buy more shoes that are just the freaking same. All right. Section 4, audience questions. You too can ask questions at noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. We will also be putting a community tab posts up on probably Wednesday or Thursday maybe of each week, and you guys can go in and you can answer or ask all your questions, and then I will answer them. You can also answer them, I guess, as well in the comment section below. Alessio asks, what's your opinion on the durability of Mizuno boots compared to other brands like Nike and Adidas? This is going to be, broadly speaking, Mizuno has better durability across pretty much all of their models, particularly the Alpha, because the Alpha is synthetic. It's going to last essentially forever unless you have a part of your foot that's going to blow out the upper or whatever, or the sole plate gets shredded, or you're running on concrete to get to a field or something over and over and over again, and the studs wear away. But I think generally speaking, Mizuno build quality really shows. And so I would say that that's my answer. However, there are Nike and Adidas models in the past that have been remarkably bulletproof. Tiempo Legend 9 actually was one of those boots. I've mentioned that boot because it's excellent. It doesn't fit my foot perfectly, but it fits me well enough to play. I played a bunch of games in them and training in them in 2022 when they came out. And that boot, man, I could not break them for the life of me. They were so well built, and every piece of that boot, the knit tongue or the mesh kind of knit tongue, the heel area, like there was no fraying. And I had the original pair. So this is actually funny. The first 1 month review that I ever did was the Tiempo Legend 9 Elite in the launch colorway, the black with that beautiful electric blue swoosh. You guys can go check that out. I think that video is one of my highest viewed videos of all time. It's got like, I think it's north of 50,000 views now, which is awesome. So that boot, man, like you could nuke that boot and it would not, I swear to God, you could put them back on and start playing again. Like that is crazy. So my point is just that there have been silos and specific generations of silos of Nike and Adidas boots that have been remarkably durable, but generally speaking, Mizuno's the way to go. Dylan, why do big brands move away from good/popular tech quickly while smaller brands refine existing models? One is marketing and two is R&D cost. So the R&D cost of making really tiny improvements to a boot is pretty minimal. Obviously, the biggest change that we saw with the Mizuno Morelia 2, which is kind of the most recent upgrade. I can talk about Phantoms in just a second. But an example like Mizuno as a juxtaposition, right? So the Phantom series changed a lot. Yes, they went back to kind of Phantom GX1, which they had already done. So there is sort of that DNA that you have in there, but and they're using some of the same materials. But Nike has essentially an unlimited budget in terms of R&D, and so if they can change, visually speaking, enough that it makes consumers really excited, despite being the same materials as the previous two generations, that's a win in their book, because they're not developing any new tech other than the sole plate, which has changed, which is amazing. But that's really it. You look at a brand like Mizuno and the Morelia 2 in particular, which has been out for like 2 decades now or some crazy shit like that. The Morelia 2, they changed 5 items, I think, and only one of them you're actually going to notice. So it's like, what? Right? Only the heel liner is the thing you're probably tangibly going to notice. But the studs in the front, i.e. the little rivets in the front, they took out, which apparently they were trying to do for a really long time because they've had the glue and the lasting technology. Like, they don't really need the rivets anymore. It doesn't change the durability at all. So they took those out, which means they're not producing it, lower cost. And then they just added a really high quality suede to the back, which maybe bumps the price up by a cent or two per unit. But then they sell out almost immediately, particularly in that ruby red colorway. So I love, Dylan, fabulous question. But really it comes down to you innovate for the sake of innovation, like the big brands do, because it's they have more money and they can spend more on R&D, and also it's better for marketing. And then Mizuno, smaller brand, less money to innovate and do, you know, their 2.0 generations or 3.0s or whatever their next generation is. Edward, what could football boot companies learn from running shoe brands? Ooh, great. Damn, this already, we're like the best. This is like the best Q. I reckon these questions, I've already gone through them. This is probably the best Q&A we've had ever. This is like, some of these questions are freaking awesome. I think, and I've said this in several podcasts, one of my favorite things that that's not the right way to say it. The most excited I get, the most exciting technology that I think could grace us in the football boot world at some point is what Adidas accomplished a little bit with their F50 Plus. So having the Light Strike Pro, which is actually the same race shoe running foam that's in their Evo SL and their Evo Pro 4 and some of the other running shoes that I love for my triathlon. They're incredible. And the bouncy, it's like so bouncy and beautiful. F50 Plus uses that. And I've said this multiple times. I think the technology that we're going to see, even though it's subtle, is going to be, how does the sole plate, the midsole, like how can they create a midsole and sole plate combination that feels like a running shoe despite having a really hard stud pattern underneath. So that's what I think. That's my hope, is what we could have these brands learn from their running stuff. Outside of that, there have been some upper crossovers, which is kind of cool. So there's been some uppers from running shoes that have showed up in football boots and vice versa, which is kind of sick. But my biggest thing is the underfoot feel. Francesco asks, have you tested boots with carbon plates that are better suited for players? Have you tested it with carbon plates that are better suited for players with knee injuries or that help reduce shock? No. Carbon plates, at least in football boots right now, are not good for reducing shock. You look at a football boot like this, it's going to be way too aggressive. If you have injuries, pre-existing injuries, or you're afraid of injury, do not buy the Puma Ultra Carbon. It's just not worth it. And the whole point of a carbon plate, particularly in running shoes, when it's often sandwiched in between race foam, is that when you still have that reduced risk because you have the bounce from the running foam, but then the carbon plate is there to help reduce the amount of energy that your body has to put into the ground in order to get out what it needs. Hopefully that makes sense. James asks, do you think it's good to be hard on yourself when messing up simple drills like wall passes or juggling? There is a big difference, in my opinion, between being hard on yourself and having high expectations. Being hard on yourself is, I don't see a point in being hard on yourself. I see a really, really big benefit from having high expectations and having high standards for yourself. But having any sort of negative emotion towards a failure of any point, and I mean a failure like you missed a pass or you had a bad touch when you're playing by yourself in the garage and no one else is watching. So grand scheme of things, that's a minuscule failure. Having a high standard means that you just bounce straight back into it, literally and mentally, and you take your touchdown and you keep playing against the wall and you don't think twice about it, because that's part of the process of learning. Failing is part of the process of learning. I think it is a complete waste of emotional energy to be hard on yourself. I think you can have really high expectations and not be hard on yourself. I think you can have grace for yourself and you can be generous with the amount of sort of, yep, okay, you screwed up. What did you learn? Be critical, be analytical. But I don't think it doesn't do any good. I will use my personal example. I spent too much time not focusing on my process and focusing on the outcome, which came from a over-index on being hard on myself. Hopefully that makes sense. Have high standards, but if you screw up, you screw up. It's just part of the process, right? Jonas asks, do you see a future where custom insoles or 3D printed midsoles become more common in top tier football boots? I absolutely do, but I don't think it's going to come from the big brands. Big brands, and I mean Asics, Mizuno, even the sort of smaller, bigger brands, I don't think they have well, put it this way. They're not going to spend the money to do customs for every single person. However, I do think that there is absolutely room in the market for third-party groups, especially with the rise of AI and 3D modeling and scaling and everything, where we're already seeing this with boots that are either 3D printed or they're like Imatana that use an app that you then kind of 3D model your foot, and we'll start to see that. So I think third parties and small boot brands are going to be able to do it at a premium price, but we won't see it from big brands, I don't think. Johnny asks, why don't brands like Under Armour, Skechers, or Sokito offer AG options? With AG growing, what innovations might we see in the AG specific tech? Great question. So the reason Under Armour, Skechers, and Sokito don't have AG options is because sole plates and the design and production of a sole plate actually costs a metric shitload of money. You'd be shocked at how expensive developing a sole plate is. So one of the, like this one, I reckon this this is Carbitex. The Carbitex insert with this design, this sole plate design that is brilliant, by the way, probably cost Adidas. I'm shooting in the dark. I'm shooting in the gray. I'm not shooting in the dark because I have an idea of what some sole plates cost. It's definitely, I'm pretty sure it's six-figure territory, like well into the six figures, like multiple six figures. And I realize for a brand like Adidas, that's like a drop in the ocean. But for a lot of brands, developing a sole plate, particularly because a lot of brands are developing new sole plates kind of every generation. So that's a couple $100,000 every 6 months or every 6 months or every year or 18 months or whatever. Like that's a lot of money. Like shit, if I had a boot brand, I'd develop one sole plate and stick with it forever. You know what I'm saying? So that's, yeah, money's part of it. I think you can't really fault a brand like Sokito. I don't think Sokito deserves to be in this conversation because they're, number one, a lot newer than Skechers and Under Armour. I know Skechers has only been around in the football industry over a year, but they are, I think, the largest footwear brand in the world. So they've got money. It doesn't, like, money is no option or no object. Sokito, though, is a lot smaller. Like, it's a tiny team. So that's where I would be like, give Sokito a little bit of grace on this one. But with AG growing, innovations might we see? Honestly, I think we may see, with AG growing, I actually don't know if we'll see AG tech. I think I'm excited about what I said earlier, which is that sort of race foam technology inside of football boots, which would be especially applicable in an AG format and an FG format. So I think that's where we will see big time that technology. I hope into an AG model so that there's a lot less injuries that happen. It's easier and more comfortable to play on an AG surface with still having studs, etc. Mateo, Noah, if the Future 8 has a wide heel area, do Neymar and other Puma players have a custom heel area? Yes, absolutely. As I've covered in this podcast and in my videos many, many times, particularly people like Neymar, players like Neymar, the face of a particular silo, every single one of those guys is going to have a custom fit football boot, even if they look like the pair that you have on. Max asks, which boots would you say provide the best barefoot feel while still offering protection? That is a completely oxymoronic question. So I'm going to give you the best barefoot shoe and I'm going to give you the best protective shoe. The best barefoot shoe on the market is either the Vapor 16 or the Puma Ultra 5. Those are the most barefoot in my opinion. The most protected are probably the Copa Icon 2 or the Morelia 2. Final answer. Michael, hey Noah, I'm a big fan of your content. In the next 5 to 10 years, what brand of soccer boots do you think will be the best? Good question. What will be the best? Well, it depends on what you define best as. I think we already have, if Mizuno continue to do what they do, which is slow, constant innovation over time, Mizuno will continue to be the best. Yeah. Omar, when will we see the WeFoot collab? Been waiting to buy some. I appreciate that, Omar. So WeFoot and I actually have a meeting early next week in 2 or 3 days. And so we will be talking about that. I don't know if a ton of you guys want my logo on your socks. If you do, leave a comment below. But I think a lot of people just want basic grip socks. So without my logo on them, it would be really cool. I would love to do that. So my hope is that we will get them on the WeFoot website, and then you guys can purchase them through the WeFoot website and then just use my discount code and stuff. And then you can go and purchase that particular model with like the custom logo and stuff on it. Paulo asks, hot take, the ASICS Menace 5 is better than the Mizuno Morelia Neo. Oh, that is a hot take. Where do the Menace 5s rank in 2025 for you? They are a good pair of football boots. I enjoy wearing them. They are not even close to the top 5. Robert, what's the best way to try boots that stores don't stock, like Mizuno or New Balance? You can't really, unless you're okay buying a pair of boots, getting them in, trying them on, and then returning them if they don't fit. No harm, no foul if you like to do that, but it is logistically incredibly difficult to try on Mizuno football boots or Umbro or New Balance, boots that aren't often that available in retail stores. So that's how I would go about it. I would, if there's a pair that you're pretty confident, after watching my review, after watching Josh's and Boot Wizards and reading Lockhart's blog and Unisport, like watch every piece of content on that pair of football boots that you're interested in, and then be like, okay, I'm pretty sure these are going to fit me. Buy them. And if they don't fit you for whatever reason, make sure that that company that you're buying from has a great return policy. It'll just take you a little bit longer to get the pair of boots that you can actually wear, unless they work on the first try, which is amazing as well. Sandro, are there any newer boots that feel similar to old classics like the F50 Adizero 2010? That particular Adizero 2010, no, because that upper was so thin and so, it was a little stiff, but so thin and so stiff that it's like we've graduated from that now, and there really isn't anything. I don't think you would want there to be anything kind of like that. For context, I love that upper. I think it's really fun to play in, and the remakes of that boot, which are behind this black box right here, my light box, are wonderful, and I love them. It's just that upper for a lot of people was way too stiff, and it didn't really mold to the foot all that well, et cetera, et cetera. But for somebody like you and me, I would hope we would see something like that. But I think the most, you could argue maybe the most similar would be the current generation F50, because it's kind of the same. It doesn't really stretch all that much, and it doesn't really mold all that well to your foot. That would be one. And then you could, maybe you could argue the Alpha, actually. The Mizuno Alpha is probably, actually, that's my final answer. Mizuno Alpha is probably the most. Mizuno Alpha is objectively better than the 2010 F50, but it does feel somewhat similar in some respects. Vicente, what's your opinion on using TPU conical studs on AG fields as a replacement for FG studs if you only have one pair? Okay, so Vicente is asking, basically, you have a pair of soft ground with the screw-in metals. That's the only pair of football boots you have. You rock up to an AG pitch. What do you do? Because wearing metals on an AG pitch is a horrible idea. Like, it's really, like, please do not do that. Please do not do that. You are at such a high risk of injury. I think the TPU conical studs actually are a great way to mediate that situation. So make sure they're either TPU or rubber. I prefer the rubber ones if you're going to play on an AG surface. TPU is great if you're going to play on an FG surface. And yeah, replace those studs. Just make sure they're tightened enough so you don't lose any of them. And then I would just make sure you're really meticulous about cleaning the bottom of your boots so that no shit gets inside of the little hole that you screw the studs in, because it can often either start getting rusty or it can get really gross, and then you aren't able to screw the studs in all the way, and then it just causes all sorts of problems. So just make sure you clean them. But rubber studs and TPU studs, both fabulous as far as replacements for an SG model that you want to use on an AG or an FG surface. Last question. TAS, TAHS. Have you heard of CharlyUSA? Seen their ads on Instagram? Any plans to review them? Of course, I've heard of Charly. I would like to review them at some point. Here in Australia, it's very difficult to get those in, so I may have a friend send some over from America. We will see. But yeah, I've seen some of their stuff. Some of their stuff actually looks pretty cool, and they seem to be innovating at a pretty rapid rate. I think they're a reasonably sized company as well, which is kind of cool. So yeah, we'll see. I'd like to at some point, but again, there's a lot of boots. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 pairs of boots that I have to review tomorrow, and then during this week I will take them out for playtests and stuff. It's just a lot. So and that's 6 weeks gives us 3 weeks of content. 6 boots gives me 3 weeks of content. So you wouldn't see this video for probably a month or two anyway. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Episode number 16 of the Boot Report. If you made it all the way to the end, give me the lock emoji in the comment section to tell me you are absolutely locked the fuck in. All right. I appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so much for watching. One question that I do have for all of you: would you prefer, or would you like it if I put my podcast on Apple and Spotify and all other podcast forms so you could just listen to it as opposed to consuming it on YouTube? Would love to know the answer to that question. As always, be awesome. Take care. I'll see y'all in the next video. Go Gunners.